Hello everyone, Rookie League here with another Monster Train 2 video series. In this series, we're going to be looking at an overview of each clan. So as you unlock them, you'll know some of their strengths, weaknesses, and some good card picks that I found to look out for on your runs. Starting with the champions for the Banished today, we've got Fel and Talos. Now the Banished and Pyreborn, these are the first two clans that you have access to, and Fel and Lord Phoenix being the first champions. So starting with Fel, now the Banished, they work with Valor, which increases attack and armor. They have a lot of movement and buffs that trigger from movement. They have Hymnus, which give them a lot of combat modifiers that are available, and they have things that they can alter for room size advantage. So with Fel, we have multi-strike for the Vanguardian. So for Fel, with the Vanguardian, we're having multi-strike, and on Revenge, they apply Valor to friendly units. This is useful because it gives all friendly units a buff to attack, and at the end of the turn on Resolve, they also get armor if they make it. Now that's one thing about Valor, is that to get the armor perk, you have to wait until the round's over. So you do have to make sure to keep your units alive. Next we have Unchained, where Shift, they get one Valor, Fel gets one Valor permanently. And at 75 Valor gain, they get another stack of multi-strike. This could be really useful. I like a lot of the permanently altering stats, because if you really go and apply it in the beginning, towards the end, you can start to see some good numbers. And with this multi-strike at the end, they become a really damaging champion. Lastly, which is one of my favorites, we have the Savior, where it advances them to the front, and they gain 15 Valor, and you get the armor from Fel's Valor immediately with the ability trigger, instead of having to wait until the Resolve. So that's Fel. Really cool champion to have some different mechanics that synergizes well with some of the cards and units. Next up, we have Talos. Now, Talos is cool because they have the flight ability, and she can go between any floor and max that floor out, and apply some of her buffs or debuffs to different floors with the flight, as long as you wait for the cooldown. So with Talos, we have Battle Cleric, which is on Resolve. She applies 2 to friendly units, which is a little bit like Talos's Revenge, but it's a little bit less useful because it works on Resolve. Next, we have Celestial Radiance, which is melee weakness. At level 3, you get melee weakness 3 on Shift. So any movement that you do, they're going to apply melee weakness. And this is really good for scaling, especially if they're paired with a combat-oriented clan like Hellhorn. The damage that you see, this has been a game winner for some of the rounds. And lastly, we have Enchantress. And this is cool because it's a permanent buff for units on all floors. Now, as you can see, Talos' stats are kind of weak, but that's because this one, she's primarily going to be used as like a support. And as you see, it starts with 2 and 6, and by the end you get 10 and 20, which is really good, and it stacks permanently. So if you're using the same units a lot, they're going to start to grow exponentially from having access to Talos. So those are their champions. Now we're going to look at some cards to look out for before we summarize it all up with our pros and cons. So starter cards. You got Just Cause and Advance. Advance is good. It raises Valor 1 stack, and if you add any sort of double stack or something to it, you can have a modifier to increase that. Just Cause is cool because this would trigger shift for certain units, and because it moves whoever you cast this on to the front. So what I like to do is I like to switch around and move things to the front and back, and then use somebody's ability to move them back to where I originally wanted. And I can get like 3 to 4 triggers of shift with that. So some things to look out for. I like to start with commons and common and uncommons, because this is what you're primarily going to be building your runs around. I don't like to bank on a lot of rare cards because, you know, there's some things that I've only seen once per game, and I've got about close to 300 hours in this game so far, which isn't the craziest amount, but just to give you a scale to how often I've seen rares, I've seen a few of these, but like I've only gotten one of these dancers, and I don't pick Banished that much. Host Guard, I think I've only seen once. Blood-Soaked Arena comes around a lot, it seems. And a Death Metal Hymnist, if you can get that, that's good. But going back to the commons and uncommons, I like to definitely get Cleave. That's going to help with having some sort of access to sweep. Windblade, you know, you're going to get Valor kind of just exponentially over time. If you can apply this early or give it one of the equipment deployments to come out on the deployment phase, this will help you gain a lot of Valor for the battle. Upbeat Wobbler, I will take that because it grants quick to the whole floor, which can save you on having to heal if your guys are doing enough damage to take them out. And then Challenge. Melee weakness plus advance is really useful. Also for mobility, Rising Rage is good, but I'm not always a fan of advancing someone that doesn't have a way to move. But then if you're paired with Fell and you have Just Cause, you can move who you would like to move right after that. Moving on to the uncommons. Everlasting Light. This is a great tool for multi-strike too. Every hit that you get on multi-strike, apply 2 Valor to your team on that floor. Super powerful equipment. Doesn't have much attack that you add, but with the strike, it's understandable why. The Hymnists are great. In uncommons, I like Valor. This one adds +1 per stack, which can increase your armor and your attack. Trample with the Punk Shredder also helps increase mobility to getting some of those backliners. With units, the uncommons, I mainly go for Avenger because they've got a lot of health and the melee weakness is just so powerful. This clan and melee weakness is really good, and it's the way that they can kind of offset some of the lack of spell power by having more debuffs to do physical melee damage. And I also like to go for the Shield of Wing. This gives you real revenge based on the unit's health, which is really powerful. Sometimes I'll take Firebrand just to get that revenge off, a good revenge trigger, but the Valor only applies to them. Whereas the revenge trigger from the Avenger, everyone on the floor can benefit from. Lastly, we'll take a look at just some of the rare cards. Cursed Twin Blade, really good for multi-strike, but I would only grab it if I can pair it or use the equipment shop to combine it with Everlasting Light to offset some of that damage reduction. Now, -1's not that much, but if you have somebody who's hitting 4 times a turn, that's going to start to add up quick, and you're losing 4 attack each time just from having that. And basically any of the rares, except for maybe Blood-Soaked Arena, are going to help a Valor-based clan build. The Dancers are great because these, if you're using shift characters, that's just going to add more, either by armor or attack. And Heaven's Sword, this has also been a game winner for me. Moving everybody up to a floor, and it picks the highest health and puts them in the front. Super useful. So, looking at the pros and cons. Pros of the Banished, they handle everything combat and melee oriented. They have just about access to every combat modifier available. And their main mechanic buffs 2 very important stats of the games with attack and armor. Some of the cons. With the floor movements, like things like Heaven's Ward, they do have they do interact more with that 7-unit limit. So if you bring your whole floor up and there's not enough room, some of the people will stay down there. And if they don't have quick and they get attacked early, this group doesn't have like a lot of health on some of their units, so they could be kind of wasted if they don't make it to the floor. Also, as you'll see in some of this footage here, I find it harder to hit crazier numbers with them at the moment, just off of base attack. But with things like melee weakness, it gets multiplied, but you just don't see the crazy numbers that you do with like some of the other ones. Like I had a Melting Remnant and Luna that was hitting for like 1500 a hit with multi-strike. And usually with most of these, I see between 150 to 300 on my last battles. And then finally, if you're going against anything that has any sort of physical defense, there's not a lot of alternatives just within this clan to counteract that. So enemies that have Resurrect, Spikes, or Revenge, these guys are going to get hit hard, and you're going to have to really plan around that if you're going to look ahead at the bosses, or get a clan that can have a lot more of a utility toolkit available to them. So that's my overview of the Banished. A really good starter clan. I like to start with the Pyreborn. It's a little bit easier of a mechanic than learning about Shift, Resolve, Valor versus Attack, Armor. You have to learn a little bit more concepts of the game to be able to really use them appropriately. But like I said, once you get it going and you get the concepts, they're a really good clan. And I can see why them and the Pyreborn are the first that you start with. Alright guys, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for listening and checking us out. And I like to stream on Wednesdays to do the daily challenge on my Twitch. So just be sure to follow me on social media platforms and we can talk more about Monster Train and other games. Alright, thanks guys. See you next time.